Dear delegates, dear friends, dear colleagues, today we are meeting to celebrate an important event in the history of WOAH, namely the 100th anniversary of its creation on 25th January 1924. What a long way we have come since the 28 founding countries signed the international agreement marking the start of its existence. Today, we shall be looking back over these past 100 years. The aim will be not simply to recall the key stages that have forged the identity of the organization, but to draw lessons for the future, given that WOAH is a major player of global sanitary governance and must ensure that it remains relevant in the long term. I also believe that knowing and understanding our history is important in order to reclarify the core principles of the organization in a changing world and build the future with a shared vision. At the start of the venture, the project was far more limited than what it is today. The aim was to reach agreement on coordinated action to fight the spread of animal disease by trade. Over the years, this historic mission has been enriched and the mandate broadened to include other activities. It will, of course, take too long to recount a whole century of our existence. Today, I would simply like to look back at some of the key milestones in the history of our organization. Well, it seems to me that we can distinguish four main phases in the construction and development of WOAH. The first phase began with the creation of the OIE as an organization focusing on animal diseases. Its mandate was confined to two objectives. Firstly, publishing the sanitary information notified by its members, and secondly, elaborating standards aimed at ensuring safer trade. This mandate, which remains central today, was given further resonance in 1995 by being formally recognized in the WTO's SPS agreement. The OIE thus became the technical reference organization on which the WTO could base its arbitration of trade disputes between countries. This recognition also influenced the partnership policy of the OIE, which proceeded to sign cooperation agreements with numerous other organizations. This expertise remains a crucial basis for the organization, as managing sanitary information and elaborating standards are incontestably two fields in which WOAH remains, to this day, the sole competent international organization. The second phase saw the diversification of the organization's fields of intervention with the development of standards for aquatic animals, the broadening of scope to include animal welfare, and a foray into the wildlife sector. Regarding aquatic animals, the first standards were published in 1968. Several reference laboratories were added to the ones already existing for terrestrial animal diseases. And gradually over the years, our area of intervention was significantly expanded to include disease of mollusks, crustaceans, and amphibians. Today, we have a coherent strategic approach that considers aquatic animal health in an holistic manner, but more needs to be done as this sector still does not receive the attention it deserves. Regarding animal welfare, our commitment dates back to the beginnings of the 2000s with the publication of the first standards and then the launch of regional strategies. Admittedly, this was a rather production-oriented approach, but we have now managed to evolve towards a more welfare-oriented approach. Since 2017, we have in place a strict global strategy, and we have established a global animal welfare forum to facilitate dialogue with the concerned stakeholders. Thus, over and above the standard-setting work, more general topics are discussed, such as the contribution of animal welfare to SDGs or animal welfare economics. Lastly, we are involved in wildlife health, thanks to considerable effort to make a significant impact. Our actions now take place within a wildlife health framework. Several studies have been published. For instance, during the COVID-19 crisis, important recommendations were issued regarding trade in wildlife and wildlife surveillance. And the organization's interventions are today duly noted at events organized by partners such as CITES, UICN, and so on. Let's move on now on the third phase of our history, marking another important change in the role the organization intends to play. In the 2000s, we complemented our disease or theme-based approach with a more transversal involvement on behalf of the veterinary services. A marvelous project was launched, and today everyone knows about our PVS pathway, our programs of twinnings between laboratories, between veterinary education establishments, and between veterinary study bodies, as well our veterinary education guidelines. These programs have become pillars of the organization's mandate. Since I was elected, I have endeavored to make the organization more inclusive, and advocacy on behalf of the veterinary services solely by promoting the veterinary profession has now evolved to advocacy on behalf of all those professionals working on a daily basis for animal health, namely veterinary paraprofessionals and community animal health workers. And today, we are working to strengthen the entire workforce. Few words now on the fourth and last phase I have identified. It revolves around two strong ideas. First, strengthening the organization's strategic approach to make the resulting actions more consistent. And secondly, positioning the organization more strongly as a player at the intersection of critical global challenges, such as the One Health approach and the SDGs. As I have already said, WOAH's involvement is now more clearly defined through framework strategies, which are then broken down into operational activities on animal welfare, the fight against antimicrobial resistance, aquatic animal health, and so on, as well, of course, for some priority animal disease, foot and mouth disease, P. ruminant, rabies, avian influenza, or African swine fever. And let us not forget that these strategies are also intended to open the organization to sustainable and operational partnerships beyond the strict limits of veterinarians' usual areas of intervention. As a matter of fact, I am convinced that WOAH can and ever should play a role in resolving critical global issues. That is why, during my term of office, I have worked hard to ensure WOAH's strong involvement within the quadripartite and our presence at high-level events, thereby providing us with political visibility and legitimacy. Position papers, statements, or vision papers are already being published on topics such as livestock production, animal welfare, the use of growth promoters, and so on. And tomorrow, we'll need to make our voice more clearly heard in societal debates. Today, we are proud of our history. But what lessons of the past can help us build the organization of tomorrow? First and foremost, I wish to emphasize the importance of preserving our founding missions and the credibility they give WOAH. To that end, we need to ensure the scientific excellence of the standards produced, and the importance of the evaluation of our science system and relevant basic texts currently underway, aimed at ensuring they are on par with international best practices. In addition to scientific excellence, we need to ensure the relevance of standards, from the process of deciding on the choice of subjects to be covered through to an analysis of the conditions in which they are applied, thanks to the surveys conducted by the observatory. For the data recorded by the WOAH system, there is a need to optimize their value added and to supplement this sanitary data with socioeconomic data to inform decision-making and better prioritize needs. Ladies and gentlemen, we're operating in a world that is complex and ever-changing, a world where the preservation of natural environments is a source of concern with the intensification of animal production, a world where mobilizing the players and stakeholders remains a constant challenge. Bearing that in mind, WOAH's involvement will need to be strengthened For example, by better identifying professional partners we can work with via innovative PPP projects, and or by further stimulating the creation of technical and scientific networks and their activities. This should help WOAH to express a clear position on topical issues, mindful of the need to consider animal health, economy of animal production, preservation of environments within a perspective of sustainable development. Lastly, I believe the future of the organization will involve a greater momentum of our regional strategies. To this end, we need you, the members and partners of the organization, and I hope that the information collected during previous missions will help us to better identify your expectations and needs, thereby allowing more efficient deployment of our global strategy at regional level and a greater ownership of our activities at a national level. Ultimately, after 100 years of existence, I think we can all recognize and acknowledge that WOAH has become an organization that is concerned with all aspects of animal health, following an holistic approach. That WOAH is an organization whose voice is heard beyond its usual environment, thanks to the expression of opinions and to partnerships that combine policy objectives and operational actions. And also an organization that is credible, allowing us to envisage exerting political influence at high-level international forums. We can thus hope that the negotiation underway at WHO on the future pandemic treaty will be an opportunity for WOAH to be legally recognized as an important player in future global health governance, along similar lines to the WTO SPS agreement. Our organization has the strength to begin a new chapter in its history, and I thank you for helping us to write it.